So now, first of all, we would like to thank all of the brothers and sisters for their contribution and help in spending their time, their money, their energy in bringing us together so that we can have these majalis and these holy nights, and to do one of the most important acts that we have, which is to keep alive the memory of the Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam. Please give a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now we're continuing along in our khutbah of Fatima, and we're going into each one of these things which she mentioned before she starts talking about her rights in Fadak. First, she starts mentioning the different actions and duties that we have in Islam, and she is giving the reasoning behind these things. So this is something we see often in the khutbahs of the Ahlul Bayt, as that they don't just pitch into what's the reason for the speech. They kind of give us an introduction, they give us some information about our religion. So the issue that she brings up next along this way is, she says, wal amr bil ma'ruf maslahata lil amah, that the amr bil ma'ruf is to correct the masses. Now, we know this concept of Amar bil Ma'ruf as one of the important duties that we have as a Muslim, which is that we invite people towards good and we also prevent people from evil. And if you think about it, the whole message of the prophets is that the prophets would be doing these sorts of things, and this would be what would cause the wrath of the nations to come down upon them. One of the things that we notice is that the evildoers, yes, to some degree they dislike it if you are keeping away from evil, but sometimes they tolerate it. Sometimes they even think there's some benefit in it. Because let's say that you're not lying and cheating and things like that, but they're lying and cheating. The fact that you aren't doing it can benefit them, because they know they're not going to get lied to or cheated or stolen or robbed or something. So sometimes they even promote some kind of weak morals amongst the society, even if they're a fir'ain or which such and such people. They like there to be some kind of like secular morals in the society for their own benefit. But they want this to be very much on a personal level and not to sort of become some sort of foundational practices of the society. And we see this very often, that when you have Hazrat Musa or Hazrat Isa or something come to the society, and when they're just good on a personal level, there's not a lot of pushback. However, when they start interfering with the main sources of corruption in the society, particularly things which generate revenue for those elites, suddenly they become angry. When they start giving pushback on ideas that people have which are destructive to the society but benefit certain people, you get pushback. So when they start inviting people towards Tawheed. In all of these societies, these guys had Tawheed, a concept of Tawheed, even in the time of Pharaoh and stuff like that. But they didn't like it. Why? Because people wanted to rely on Allah and not on the Fir'aun. So they said, if you want to do it shakhsiyan, personally, you can. But if you start preaching about it, no, this is now a threat to our society. When Hazrat Isa started doing good deeds amongst himself, that's fine. But as soon as he went into the temple and started flipping over the people who were the money changers in the temple, they gave pushback. What we also notice is that the societies themselves recognize this evil. The people in charge try to mute it, but it's known to the society, because many times, it's not that you become a Muslim and this and that and the other, and then you choose a marja'i taqleed and blah, 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 and then you realize that, stealing is wrong. No, people know that it's wrong. People know that putting in fake weights in the marketplace was wrong. So when the Prophet would come and be like, why are you putting a weight on the scale that's not the actual weight and cheating the people out of their money? And they're like, hey, be quiet about that. You don't worry about it. It's my business. It's not your business. Suddenly it becomes the issue now. I'm just asking a question. Why is this okay? But the society as a whole knew that this was wrong. So we have this verse from the Quran, which is reinforcing, or the source rather, of the Hadith of Fatima. وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةً يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. That there should be from you an ummah, a group. And an ummah, one of the things about an ummah is that it usually should have a leader. So it's actually making ishara for the imamah. There should be from you a group who is calling people towards goodness and orders people to do good and prevents people from evil. One of the things we noticed growing up is that it was supposedly very cool to not really have any opinion about anything. You do you and you let everybody else do them. That's what they would try to promote, this idea that the best of the mankind is the one who has no opinion about anything and is cool with everything. How is that? So that you're seeing evil deeds being committed in your society and you're allowing them to go and you're not trying to prevent them. You see people doing good, but you're not saying anything of words of encouragement and trying to push them forward. You see good which could be done, and you're just letting it go. You're seeing atrocities, things worse, and they're like, no, that's none of my business. What's very interesting is the Tawhuts always stick their nose in everybody else's business, though. They never say, mashallah, you guys are praying, it's none of our business. No, they come over and they say, yeah, it's our business, why are you doing that? We saw this, it was like France and some of these places, oh yeah, we're going to ban hijab. Why? Because we think that it's preventing you guys from being able to communicate. Why is that your business, whether we can communicate or not communicate? They want to stick their nose in it and enforce their rules. But when we want to say that, okay, well, these are some good ideas, we would like to, submit these for consideration, they no, you can't submit anything. We can submit, you can't submit. So they're trying to promote evil and push back against good, and they think that they have the right to stick their nose into everything. But we don't have the same right. Oh, you can't deny this, and you can't say that, so you must say this, and you can't do that, and on the social medias and stuff, if punishing people who break the party line. They're trying to get into the point of being able to control your thoughts. And when you don't do Amar bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, then it starts to have an effect on you. You start to think, maybe I'm the only one. One of the things that we saw, they did experiments sometimes, where there would be somebody who is Mazlum in front of everyone else. So there's a bunch of people sitting around, and one person starts doing zulm to the other person. So they did an experiment. What happens when somebody speaks up? Even the madlum. Like, let's say if I'm being madlum and I just be quiet. The chance that people step in if I don't say anything is low. Meaning they would do the experiment, and most of the times if you just sat there and took the abuse, other people would just sit there and if you called out for help, then they were much more likely to intervene. If another person said, hey, stop that man, they were much more likely to intervene. If that person did to the next step and actually intervened, the others would join in too. So we have an interesting hadith, which everyone knows this one, which is from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He says, Man ra'a munkaran falyankirhu biyadi. So prevent it with your hand, in istatat, if you are able. In lam tastati fal bil lisani. He should say something. In lam tastati bil qalbi. And then some of the hadiths add wahada ad'af al-iman. So that you should, if you see something wrong, you should prevent it with your hand. And if you can't, then with your tongue. And if you can't, then with your heart. And this is the weakest type of faith. Two things which I want to add to this hadith. Also for good deeds. If you see a good deed which should be done, then do it. I don't know why sometimes we'll sit there and nod it and leave the good deed on the table. If we see a good deed that should be done, then do it. I can do it. Then do it. Take it as your personal duty to have this done. If you can't, then encourage others to do it. If you see someone doing it, give him because sometimes he's like, you know what, I come here, I sweep the masjid every day and nobody cares. Say, yeah, good job. We do this, it's funny, we do this with children. When we want them to do something, we tell them, hey, you know what, you should break salat, you should do this, you should do that. If after they do it, even if they do a bad job, we say, you know, good job, you did a good job, and to encourage them. And if not, even if we can't do it, with our heart. And they say with your heart means facial expression or something like that. So if you see a mujrim, you should let him know that you don't really like him. You're not comfortable with this type of thing. If you see a believer, you know, you greet them with a smile. Encourage them in that good behavior. We have a ayat of Quran, which is, it says, وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. So one of the things about Amr bil Ma'ruf is that you should be persistent in it. We like to be able to just throw it out there once and then forget about it, fire and forget. No. Sometimes, especially with your family, with the people that you work them over. You can keep, and it doesn't have to be in a brutal way. This is where the bad reputation is. They say, oh yeah, you know, Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar, it's just being nosy and being a Karen and this. No, it takes some zakah. It takes some thoughtfulness before you do it. First of all, am I doing the same munkar that I'm trying to do munkar about? Doing the Amr bil Ma'ruf about? You need to stop yourself. So one of the good ways, the first step is always to try to pull yourself out of this type of trouble. And then so like let's say we'll start with this example that Allah is giving us in the Quran of one of the most important Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy al Munkar. Because you know how they say, oh, I'm going to let my kids go and then they're going to decide for themselves, you know. And Allah is like, you know, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارُهَا وَقُودَهَا إِنسَانٌ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. That take your precaution against the fire, that the fuel of it is men and stones. They're like, no, you just let your kids do whatever they want, and then once they're bad or they're good, then they decide for themselves. Allah's like, no, you need to implant on them the right things, because a kid is like a blank program. The most important thing is how to think about things, but also to get them the good habits so that when they reach the age of taklif, it's not heavy. The reason that the mujrimeen want you to leave them blank is so that once they get them, they can do whatever they want to them. They want you to leave them blank. They're like, oh, some of them are like, yeah, you know, people shouldn't be given a religion. It should be banned to teach a kid a religion until after he's 18 years old. Why? Because at that point, his nafs starts to pick up things. You pick up things subtly in the society. You know, your parents aren't paying attention to what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're watching on TV. You just say, hand the kid the iPad, and you go and you do the dishes. Hand the kid the iPad, you go and do this. Hand the kid that. Your biggest investment in your life is your children. We're handing them the iPad and going and doing our business. Dishes are more important. Even this is something my mother said, maybe the reason that your kids are always fussy every 5 minutes, Allah hasn't created them that way. Because Allah wants you to pay attention to them every 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes. And if the dishes have to get done 5 minutes later, then the dishes get done 5 minutes later. They're not going anywhere, trust me, they'll still be dirty in another 5 minutes. Pay attention to your child. Why? Also, it's not just, the child wants juice, so give him the juice to let him leave you alone so you can go back to your soap opera. No, you have an opportunity to teach them the akhlaq of it. Sometimes we forget that each time that happens, it's a chance to teach this person, this little human being, akhlaq. He's asking for a lesson in akhlaq, not juice. He's asking for a lesson in akhlaq, not do my socks fit or whatever it is? Am I itchy or whatever? You know, the kid comes over, I'm itchy, daddy. Okay. You scratch him on his back. He goes back away, comes back. I'm itchy again. It's giving you an opportunity to teach him. You can stick him with the iPad and then he'll forget about the itchiness. Or you can take this opportunity to make him a better person. I remember my father, may Allah have mercy on him, he's passed away. He used to always tell me, he was like, be careful and pay attention to how your kids are thinking. Like if you see them thinking batil things or using incorrect ways of getting information or coming to conclusions, because the human brain is designed to take shortcuts. So a lot of times Allah points out what these shortcuts that people do that get them on the wrong path. Sometimes it's everybody else is doing it. And no, the truth isn't known by sheer numbers. Sometimes it's such and such famous person is doing this. You say the truth is not, Amir al-Mu'mineen, is like that you don't know the truth with men and personalities. You know the truth and then you know the people who are following the truth. It's a different idea. You can correct that with your... I found my father is doing this. You can even teach your kids the proper adab of questioning your own behavior. Sometimes people won't do that because they're like, I want them to listen to me. Or you can say, no, if I say something and it sounds wrong to you, then ask me for the dalil. You can teach them that. It sounds wrong because you don't want them to be following you. You're doing something bad. You have some bad habit. You can teach them to call out my bad habits if it's wrong. If you heard this in the Quran, you heard this in the Sunnah, then you can say something. This is also one of the interesting things about Amar bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, is that everybody has the right to do it. And everybody has the right to receive it. And this is one of the ways that it can correct the society. You don't say, oh, well, such and such is such a big sheikh, or such and such is such a famous person, or such and such is the mother or the father, that you have no right to say anything to that person. Well, if you see a mistake, you can do it politely. It doesn't have to be you just drag the guy from the member. Maybe he made a legitimate mistake. He doesn't know. Maybe your father made a legitimate mistake. Maybe he forgot. You can ask in such a way. If you have some sort of like zok and you have some sort of like abilities, you can say, oh, I saw you doing that. Inshallah, you had an excuse, but I was kind of wondering. That looked a little funny to me. Even give the person the excuse. It'll let him be aware of his action and also not make him feel bad, but also he knows that he can't repeat the action. Say, mashallah, it seemed like you might have slept a little too late the other night and you woke up for Fajr late. Is there anything I can do to help? Inshallah, when I get up, I can wake you up too. You give the person the excuse. The person says, yeah, But we can do this, and this is when you ask your children to pray. Don't put other priorities. That's one of the things sometimes we would have. That the kids are responsive to what we prioritize. If you prioritize, you say, no, my most important priority is the grades. You say, oh, he comes back, what's the saying? You're Asian, not a Bijan. He comes back and he has less than an A, wa wayla. Misses his salat, oh yeah, inshallah, he makes it. What's he going to take as the lesson? Sometimes I've seen this with the husband or the wife. The person can disobey Allah, they don't really get in trouble. They do something which is actually haram, they don't get in trouble. But somehow if it affects them, maybe it's not haram, it's just makruh, they want to throw a fit. Whatever that thing might be. No, you can't. You don't. If you didn't get this mad about halal and haram, then you don't have the right to get mad about stuff which is personal, because now you've put yourself and dunya over Allah. Like if I throw a fit because I don't know, just make something up. I want my peanut butter jelly sandwiches with extra peanut butter, and my wife forgot it for the 4th time, and I keep reminding her, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to you for 2 days, because what kind of wife would forget the extra peanut butter? If I throw a fit for that, but I don't care if she misses the salat, or she doesn't do this, or she doesn't do that, which is for Allah, then which one am I? I'm trying to make myself higher, because my personal desires for the extra peanut butter is more important than salat. I said that with maybe, no, mashallah, I'm not like that. But what did your actions show? Your action showed your priority. You can make any claim that you want, but your action showed the priority. And we have to be that way with our children and our wives and our friends and our families. Are we correcting our friends and our families when they do something? Oh, you stubbed my toe, you're going to get corrected. Somebody does this to me personally, oh yeah, I don't speak to the guy. But oh yeah, he skips every salat and he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that and he's a liar and a thief. But oh yeah, but he's really funny, so I let all that go. But as long as it doesn't cross me. No, we have to do the amal bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar about these things. We have some also things that the Imam talks about what happens when you pass over the amar bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. You say, "Oh, I'm not going to do it," because you don't want to feel bad. You don't want to be the oddball. You don't want to. You know how when we're growing up, nobody wants to be the teacher's pet, the apple polisher. We want to be the cool guy with the leather jacket. Comes in when he wants and does this, that, and the other. Right? That's all everybody wants to be. What was his name again? I'm showing my age. Maybe the older brothers know. What was it, Fonzie or whatever? The bad boy back in the day. What was it, Happy Days or something like that? I forget what the show was. But I'm sure they have a new version for the younger crowd. But قال رسول الله إذا أمتي توكلت الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر فلتأذن بوقاء من الله تعالى. So it says that if my ummat gives the responsibility to someone else, he makes them their wakil. You do the amar bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, I don't really care. It said that this is giving permission for a surprise attack on Allah. If you say that, I'm not going to do the amar bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. That's how the Prophet described it. That this wiqa is that you jump out of nowhere and you attack them. He said that if you say, I'm not going to do it, it's like a war against Allah. He didn't say you don't do it, you don't agree with it. You just leave it up to others to do, rather than that you do it yourself. It should be done by the closest, because it's also rather hard to do to strangers, and you have to kind of priorities. But if everybody handles their own family and the people close to them, it doesn't fall onto strangers. This is one of the things sometimes people are like, oh, I'm mad because, my son, my daughter, my whatever. That's for those of us who are teaching, the teacher tries to correct the kid. The parent comes in angry. How come you corrected my kid? I'm the one who corrects the kid. I know what's going on and what's that. He makes the excuse that throws a fit, so the teacher now stops. Now this person now turns into a monster. So in Islam, that's what something is that, first of all, any person can do to another person. So I can't come over and say, someone comes over and says, yeah, mashallah, you seem like you forgot something there. I can't say, well, do you know who I am? I'm Ayatollah, or I'm this, or I'm older than you, or I'm handsomer than you, or I'm this, or I'm that, and so I refuse to take your advice. I have to be polite about it, even if he's wrong. Sometimes you have to be polite about it because you want to make sure you keep the sunnah alive. Sometimes it turns out the guy's wrong. He's like, yeah, you know what, when you did this wrong. And I know he doesn't know what he's talking about. But instead of being like, yeah, you know what, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm going to say, can you explain to me what you mean? Okay, let's look in the book. Stuff like that. Then I'll have helped him. Now he knows what the correct ruling is. But then B, I didn't discourage him from doing it again, because I want to make sure that sunnah stays alive. That you have the right. So even if a child comes to a grown-up, or a grown-up, like we have the prophets, sometimes they would advise their fathers, or their this, or their that. Shows that it doesn't have to be from the thing. One time, I had a student who, she became Muslim. Then she went and talked to her brother and convinced the brother to become a Muslim. Then she talked to the mother and make the mother a Muslim. The father, she got everybody in the family except the father. She needed some help from me. She asked a couple of questions that the father had ishkal, and then she made the father Muslim. When you open up that door, that you can bring the whole family in when you're open-minded and you bring this. So we have another hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he says, لا تترك الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. So don't abandon Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. If you do, فَيُوَلَّى عَلَيْكُمْ شِرَارُكُمْ ثُمَّ تَدْعُوا فَلَا يُسْتَجَابُ لَكُمْ. If you abandon Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, then Allah will put the worst one of you over you, and you'll ask for help, and Allah will ignore that. We think about this on a big level, but it happens in a small level. It happens in a family level. Sometimes it's the father. The father is running his mouth, he's really aggressive, he's this, that, and the other, and nobody says that this is wrong. This is wrong. Sometimes, I'll be quiet about that. No, it's your duty to not say anything. I remember I used to give this marriage advice, and I'd be like, yeah, you're supposed to have respect for the father, this, that, and the other. Be like, what if he's doing something wrong? I was like, then your wajib is to correct him. Obviously, you have to have respect for the position, but in a respectful way, because they just wanted to be able to just go and disobey him behind his back. I was like, no, your duty. They were like, Islam is making it hard for women. No, it's your duty to. Islam doesn't change that part. Like one mu'min to another mu'min, one mu'min is stealing, then you can't say, well, I'm his wife, so I can't say anything. Or that's my father, so I can't say anything. No, Islam doesn't go over and then say, well, now that because he's your father, he can steal in front of you it's haram to say anything. No, it's still a wajib. It was wajib if it was your friend, and it's a wajib if it was your father, or a wajib if it was your son, or wajib if it was your daughter. That wajib doesn't change. You see the Amr bil Ma'ruf, it would have some effect. Sometimes the effect is he just won't steal more. So, okay, he steals a little bit, but because you keep, yeah, Dad, you really shouldn't do that, then okay, he's just, satisfies himself with stealing pocket change, but he doesn't move on to bigger and better things. But sometimes people, because of their own, they won't say anything, and then now it becomes a sunnah in the house, bullying. So the father is a bully, then the sons become bullies, and the daughters become bullies, and then whichever one is the worst and the most aggressive out of this group, that one is going to be in charge. Sometimes it's the mom. I've seen that sometimes you have a family, the father doesn't really have that type of personality. The mother is more aggressive. And he appeases and appeases and appeases, and then that becomes the sunnah of the household, and then next thing you know, she's terrorizing the whole family. Sometimes it's one of the children. They spoil one of them and appease them and appease them and appease them, and now this zalim becomes running the whole thing. Everybody's terrified of him. It also happens in a personal level. We don't think about it that. In ourselves, if we don't do Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar to our own nafs, then the nafs gets out of control. It becomes this tawhut that we can't get rid of. It's always there. Wherever we go to go here, you go to a mountain, people try to, sometimes you know what, I should move. They move, but yeah, your nafs is right there along for the ride. If you let him go, then he's driving. So you have to stop this on a personal level, that you have to do the Amr bil Ma'ruf, but it's painful, so they don't want to do it. Do it on a family level. Do it on a friends group level. I remember that was one that was hard, because nobody wanted to be the weirdo, the one to be like, yeah, it's time for salat. So everybody's delaying. Nobody wanted to be the guy to be like, hey, let's turn off the video games for 5 minutes, make salat, and then go back. And it's like, it's always me. Why does it always have to be? Didn't do it? Okay, you get the blessings all the time then. Nobody else wants to step up to the plate, you get the blessings. All right, we're gone, it's Maghrib time, let's pause the game, let's go back to it later. We'll pause the soccer game, we make salat right here on the field, and we go back to it later. Having a hot discussion, it's getting good. Nope, time for salat is salat. You be that person. Why do we have to leave it to somebody else? Inshallah, some other guy decides that he wants to do it. One of the things though about this is that with this is such an important action that we have a hadith from the Prophet that they asked him. Also, people think that somehow something bad will happen if you do it. But they asked the Prophet, they said, Ay jihadin afdal? Which jihad is the best? You know, is it fighting in the summer or is it fighting in the winter? Is it fighting the mushriks or is it fighting the people, Ahlul Kitab, who don't surrender or started a war with us? He said, Kalimatu haq inda sultan jair. A word of truth in front of a tyrannical leader. And we see that this is extremely effective. Don't we have now these protest movements? They're freaking out to try to get rid of the protest movements for their little tyrannical genocide that they want to do. You guys need to be quiet. Why do we need to be quiet? Maybe you should be quiet. We're going to do bad things to you. Or maybe you won't. How do I know? Sometimes we get we're afraid to call the bluff. I remember we were having these people. They're like, oh my God, we need to be quiet. So we weren't quiet at the time of Hazrat Ibrahim when it's one man against this tyrant. We weren't quiet at the time of Ismail when it's 3 or 4 people. We weren't quiet, for this and this and this. We weren't quiet. And the threats were much worse. Oh yeah, I'm going to get deported. Okay. Then maybe Allah's your risk is somewhere else. This isn't serious threats that we're getting scared of. Like the most minor of threats. What is it like, is it Jannat over here and, Nar over there, that we're all over there terrified? Oh yeah, I really can't say anything else, because maybe. No, I'm not saying say something silly. I'm saying that, no, this type of stuff that everybody knows from the left to the right and in the middle, that this is wrong, and you're going to be quiet on zulm. Don't do that. Not the zulm out of the country, not the zulm in the country. We're not breaking any laws or anything. No, just speaking the truth on this issue. And this is the best jihad. We have from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. وَمَا أَعْمَالُ الْبِرِّ كُلَّهَا وَالْجِهَادِ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ عِنْدَ الْأَمْرِ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَالنَّهْيِ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ إِلَّا كَالنَّفْعِ فِي بَحْرٍ لُجِّ. That all of the actions of righteousness, including war in the way of Allah, compared to Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, like spitting in an ocean. Now, when we do this Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, first of all, we have some steps. One is that you have knowledge of, we already mentioned this, that you have knowledge of right and wrong. If you don't know what's right and wrong, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, you really don't know, and you start doing Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, no, it's going to have the opposite effect. It should have some effect. Sometimes a person is so into it, it doesn't have an effect. Sometimes the person has already stopped doing the munkar. You don't have to go and do Amr bil Ma'ruf. Remember that time, 15 years ago, where I know you stopped stealing, but yeah, that's haram, by the way. He's already stopped. He'd already did tawbah. Now you're going to drag him back through the mud. There's no reason to do that. First, give the person in your mind even an excuse. Another thing is you approach with kindness and love. And another thing is that have some awareness of the more important things and the situation. I've seen people do it's like, I'll use the joke, like someone's trying to kill someone and you're like, that knife that you're using to kill the guy? I think that might be hasbi, it might be stolen. Have some sort of sense. First, let's stop the murder, and then we can go to the allowability of the knife. So we had this, like someone is doing some serious sin, and then they're going to go to some sort of minor sin and fix that one first. No, stop the serious sins, the bigger sins. The person is might be mushrik or something, and he has wrong ideas. Let's stop him from doing that, and then we can worry about whether, when he makes wudu, that he follow the correct order. Like the person doesn't believe in Allah. or they have doubts, serious doubts like this. You want to correct that first and then work your way down. Because I've noticed some people, that's how they'll actually drive people out of the deen, by rather than taking the big things. We would have converts. The person comes into Islam. We don't really see much of this in the Shia, but we see it in some of the other schools. The person comes in, the first day they're like, you know what, why are you wearing, Nikes at the masjid? Don't you know they're made by Israel? And the guy goes back, changes to Reebok. Don't you know Reebok actually endorses them too? Go change something else. Don't you know that Starbucks coffee isn't the most important thing that he comes to the masjid and you encourage him to do that before we go over and start doing the criticism? So start with the important things and have some self-awareness about it. The other part is that with our Amar bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, please give a salat. Allahumma salli Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We have some examples of how to do it. One of them is that we want to appreciate the good deeds of the others. A good way, to get someone is that first you appreciate. It's funny, we do these things for dunya, but we don't do them for akhirah. When we're in sales or something, let's say a person does a sale and he messes it up in some way, but he got the sale for you. So he got you, mashallah, he sold the house or the car, the land, or whatever it is that you're buying and selling. He messes it up a little bit on the paperwork. You say, first you're like, yeah, congratulations, really good sale. I know you really worked hard for that. But next time, when you do the paperwork, make sure you put it in the right file. We do that for dunya. For akhirah, you're like, astaghfirullah, how are you doing this wrong thing? When you made the second, when you were in the second sajda, you came up rather quickly, you were still moving while you said, subhanallah. And why are you even at the masjid if you're going to be praying wrong? That's just destroying the person's, now his personality. He's never going to come again. Because when he came to the masjid one time, you tortured him. You didn't first praise him for coming to the masjid and joining the jamaat and this, that, and the other, and help him and say it in a nice way that maybe, or observe him for a little to see, is this just a one-time thing? You didn't do any of that. You just were so happy and into yourself. So appreciate that. And we have that Allah always is saying in the Quran, Inna Allah yuhibbul, tawabin, and Allah yuhibbul muttaqin, and Allah yuhibbul muhsinin. So Allah is showing that Allah is the one who created us and has ability, but He still appreciates it. We need to do this, especially when you're doing Amar bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar in the family. A lot of times people, when they're trying to straighten out their wife or straighten out their husband, they don't say something good about them first. They just jump straight to that peanut butter and jelly sandwich, mashallah, too little peanut butter. Actually, I like mine the other way. So, mashallah, too much peanut butter. How are you doing this? I've warned you 5 times and 10 times and 11 times, and now you've made it like this again. What do you think? We jump straight into the criticism, not, alhamdulillah, thank you for making it. And you see how the Ahlulbayt in this dua we just had, Hadith Kisa, how they're greeting each other with full titles and appreciation and everything. Sometimes we kind of forget that. MashaAllah, Allah gave us a person who's mu'min and Shia and this and that and the other and believes and muhajjaba and all of this, and we just don't appreciate it. All we're thinking about is how come the sandwich was done wrong. So appreciate. Lead by example. Also, we want to call towards good in the best way. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ أَلَا أَن نَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ نَعْبُدْ إِلَّا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْءٍ. In a neutral way. You don't say, I'm right and you're wrong. Say, let's go and see what Allah has to say about it. The person is much more interested if you do it that way. You put yourself on the same level. Maybe this is right and maybe it's wrong. Hey, let's go and, I saw you doing it this way, I do it that way. Let's go and look in the Risala Amaliyah, which one is the correct way. The person's going to be interested. There's no humiliation. Another one is that you make sure that you have love and good. When you're talking about, we have the example of Hazrat Luqman. He's talking to his son. He says, Ya bunay, la tushrik billah, inna shirkum dhulmun adim. So two things. One is he calls him in a nice way. Then he gives the thing he did wrong. And then he also explains why that is wrong. He says, this is what you want to avoid, and this is why you want to avoid it, because of this harm that it causes. Also, when it's with politeness and respect, that Allah says to Musa and Harun, "Idhab ila Fir'aun innahu tagha." This person is doing the most biggest zulm that possible. He's saying, "I'm God." But Allah doesn't go there and order them to curse him out and, "Ya kafir, ya this, ya that." He says, فَقُلْ لَهُ هَلْ لَكَ أَن تَزَكَّى. Perhaps you would want to be guided, be purified. This is also when I was talking about doing the Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. We forget this with ourselves. We're like, it's me, so if I'm correcting my own nafs, I can just go straight to the chastisement. No. In a nice way with yourself, because your nafs thinks he's Fir'aun. He thinks that he's Rabbukumul A'la. So you have to kind of ease him off of his high horse. Be like, why don't we try something different this time? Let's make salat. I know it's hard for you, but we'll do just this one we'll do on time. Then the next one maybe we can. Well, we did that one, let's do another one. If you enjoy this, make it easy, you can be effective, even with tawhuts. A little flattery never helps. Appreciation and flattery, and then you get him, and now he's softened up, he's willing to listen to you, and you can pull him in. Another way is using intelligence and their powers of reason. This is with Hazrat Ibrahim. That says, فَلَمَّا جَانَ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَأَى كَوْكَبًا. So it became nighttime, and he saw a star. And then he said, هَذَا رَبِّي. He's talking to the idol worshippers, the star worshippers. فَلَمَّا أَفَلَ قَالَ لَا أُحِبُّ الْآفِلِينَ. So he's making them to realize using their own mind. When he did the same with the idols, he destroyed the idols. Then they were like, hey, this person destroyed our idols. He said, what? No, it wasn't me. It was the kabiruhum. It was the big one. Ask them if they can answer. So he made them use their own aql. They can't deny it. If you try to do everything for them, I'm going to think about this for you, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to force you to obey. Then it might be that it's on your own nafs. If you're patient, just dropping a little hand, and inshallah Allah will guide them. Maybe he won't take it from me, another person might guide him. I'm just kind of making him pay attention. You'll have a lot of benefit, inshallah, from all of that. So now we wanted to turn a little bit to something which is the story of Imam Hussein's son, Ali Akbar, and go to the land of Karbala for a minute. And we want to look at Ali Akbar, who was the son of Imam Hussain. He was the thing that he was known for was that he was extremely pious and righteous, and that even the Bani Umayyah was like that. If any person is deserving of the Khilafat, is you. They used to praise him in that way. The other thing he was known for was that he was extremely resembling the Prophet, both in his personality and mannerisms and in his looks. That when Imam Hussain used to want to remember the Prophet, he would go and look at him. People who didn't see the Prophet, they used to come to see Ali Akbar and see this beautiful young man and he was also so beloved by his aunts and his mother, and they just loved him to death. So nice, so kind, so God-fearing, so soft with the women and children. And in the day of Karbala, the Imam made the Bani Hashim wait, and he would let his friends go first. Of course, they were the most brave, but he knew that this was the hardest part was going to be in the end, after you were hungry and tired and thirsty. And whenever, if you notice, when you read to the other people, whenever these people ask for permission to go and fight, Imam Hussain is like, no, wait, let somebody else go, this, that, and the other. However, when Ali Akbar came and asked him to fight, he just said yes. He didn't make him wait. He sent him. He said, yes, go ahead. But before you go, please give your auntie Zainab and your mother and your sisters, please give them my salam. So Ali Akbar went back to the khayma, the tents, and he started giving them salams, and then started crying and crying and crying because they knew they weren't going to see this young man again. They weren't going to see a person who looked like the Prophet again. Then after he managed to separate from them, he went out to the battle. And the people had knew who he was, and they started standing up on the horses and on the camels to look at this person because they had never seen the Prophet, and they wanted to see someone who looked at the enemies were looking at Ali. And he came out to fight, and he was extremely brave. And he went and he started fighting and crashing through the lines and killing many of their people and scattering them. Then he came back and he said, "How did I do?" And his father said, "You did good." He said, "Okay, I'm going again." And he went and he fought them again. And then each time he would go and come back, he would get a little bit more tired and a little bit more weak. Finally, as he started to get a little bit weak and a little tired, he said, "My father, do you have any, I'm getting a bit tired. Do you have any water?" He said, "No, I don't have any water. Go out and charge them one more time, and the Prophet of Allah will give you some water." So he went out one last time, and he charged into the enemy, and he started fighting. And he started breaking their ranks, and they were getting so scared. They said, "We can't do anything when we try to fight him at individuals. We have to fight him as a group." And finally, someone came and said that, "May Allah kill me if I don't make this father bereaved of this son." So he went from behind Ali and he hit him and he injured him, and they stabbed him with a spear, and he started to fall off his horse, and the horse, instead of running back towards the camp, rode into the enemy camp. And now you know, with these wild people when they're scared, when they see that you're down, they don't pass up that opportunity. The whole group of the people charged and they attacked Ali Akbar. This one's attacking his hands, this one's attacking his legs, this one's attacking him with a hammer, this one's attacking him with a sword. They chopped Ali, they chopped him to bits. They cut him to pieces. He said, "Ya Bata, Ya Bata." Salam, no, my father. Imam Hussain rode out to get him. He was covered in blood. He started kissing him and hugging him. He said that your grandfather Rasulullah will give you some water. Imam Hussain was so sad, his beautiful son. He tried to pick him up, but he was so cut to pieces that when he picked up one part, the other part would fall down. He had to get help from some of the young men to bring him down. And then they saw Zainab, and the women saw the body of Ali Akbar. They were destroyed. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون اللهم اجعل حياتنا حياة محمد وآل محمد ومماتنا ممات محمد وآل محمد وآتنا في الدنيا زيارة محمد وآل محمد وفي الآخرة شفاعة محمد وآل محمد